All right, folks, welcome back to Dustin Disc, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at my first round in its entirety for my first disc golf tournament of 2021, and this is my second ever disc golf tournament. My first tournament was over a year ago, or maybe a little under a year ago, actually, and it was this exact same tournament, actually, at the exact same course, funnily enough, and I did not do well. I played the rec division. I had only been playing for a few months when I signed up, and it didn't really go well at all for me. I placed pretty poorly within the rec division. And so after, around a year or so of playing more and practicing and trying to improve, this was essentially me going to the same tournament to see how much better I could do, as well as taking a step up into a slightly higher division, just because it seemed like the right thing to do. So with that in mind, we're going to take a look at the round, and I'll throw a little bit of commentary over it here and there. And so basically, this is me just getting there and warming up a little bit. It was very cold at the start of this first round, and so I was just trying to keep my hands warm and just trying to, get a feel for my disc, get a feel for throwing. Just always good to warm up. I also did some putting warm up at home before I went to sign in for the tournament. So this is just kind of me out in the field, just throwing a couple of discs, making sure I'm loose, making sure I am ready to go. I had Sky with me, by the way, who you saw in the practice round video. And so he was caddying for me and filming. All right, so we started off on hole 7. If you don't know the course, just go check out my home course video where I go through all these holes. But this is just like a 300 and so foot par 3, and I just didn't get enough hyzer on that disc. It did not really come back to the left the way I thought it would. I don't know if a headwind got it and straightened it out or what it was, but it left me really deep in the basket. I hardly ever go deep on this hole, by the way, so gave me a little bit of confidence at least that I had the right power today. And I didn't even really go for that putt. There was a headwind. I did not want to risk the disc going over the basket. Just want to make sure I got my par and got out of there. And this one I just let go really early. Early release has been a big issue of mine, and that happened again here, but luckily I stayed in bounds on this par 4. And at this point I knew that I wasn't going to get a birdie, so I just wanted to make sure I got myself close. And that was a good forehand to, get myself close to make sure I could approach the basket and either make a really long putt here or at least set up to make sure I get my par. And so I just made sure I got close. Again, I knew that birdie was kind of out of the question when I got off the tee poorly. So I just made sure I salvaged my par, and I was able to do so. So pretty happy with that. So far, even par. And this hole gives me a lot of trouble. Hole 11 here, ditch on that left side. I sneak up on it quite often. But luckily, this disc stayed really straight. And even when it faded left here, it stayed in bounds. But I really cut that one close. I needed to be on the right side of that tree in the center of the fairway. And then here we go with the approach, and I just put way too much juice on that. And so I put myself in a really tough spot. And now this is a really tough putt. This is probably 35 feet or so just outside of circle 1 probably. And I couldn't really find good footing, as you can see. I couldn't do my traditional putting stance, so I had to switch to a straddle stance, which I'm not super confident in my shadow putt, to be honest. But I had to do something. By the way, if you see me put my hand in my pocket, I have a hot hands packet in there to warm up my hand because it's really cold out. So that's why you keep seeing my hand in my pocket at times. But yeah, that was a huge putt for me. Hit a big putt early in the round. A lot of confidence built because of that. And hello, darkness, my old friend. I have gone absolutely out of bounds. That was my first really big mistake of the day. I had been playing par golf up until that point, and that was my first really big error. And then I missed the putt because I'm in my own head a little bit from going out of bounds and just frustrated and just didn't focus on that putt enough. And so I wound up taking a double bogey on this hole and going over 2 on the par. Now we're on the very next hole. Just trying to set up, try to play a little bit of recovery. And this was a really nice forehand, but I actually wanted to be more to the right than I wound up landing. But luckily, I wasn't behind any of these trees, and I had a lane to approach. Sorry for the camera work here. Yeah, unfortunately, not be able to see that approach shot. The camera, for some reason, tilted. But I got really close, as you can see. And this was a par 4, actually, in the long pin position. So this sets me up for a pretty routine putt to get birdie and actually salvage the score a little bit. And I was able to do it. So I got a birdie early on here. Worth noting, I only got 1 birdie in an entire 2 rounds of disc golf the first time I played this tournament a year ago. So I already tied it just a few holes into my first round. So that was nice. And this one I just put a little too high. If I had a little bit lower, I would have been able to skip closer to the basket and had like a pretty routine birdie putt, but didn't happen. So here I'm probably about 30 feet away. So still gettable, but definitely not a gimme. And hey, I gave it a chance. Throwing it a little too high. There's never a good miss, but you know, at least I was online. Gave it a chance. Got a par there. Now we're on 14, another hole that gives me a lot of trouble. And this disc in practice was always really unstable for me. It would drift right really well, but I either threw that nose up or got some tailwind and out of bounds again. So another big mistake. We didn't catch the approach shot on film, but I was able to approach close to the basket, you know, pretty easily from where I went OB at. And so this is just me for a bogey putt. Try to stop the bleeding a little bit. And there we go. I was able to at least limit it to a bogey, but I'm still a couple over par now at this point. This was a great drive off the tee. I'm really happy with this. That's what you want to do on this hole if you're not trying to cross the ditch off the tee and go for the birdie. So, as you can see, Sky knows it's money as well. And so I have a pretty routine approach shot here. And I just juiced it. That was so dumb. Yeah, you can tell I was frustrated there. That was just dumb. Look at what it's left me. And at this point, I know I can't run it because it's downhill on the other side of the basket to the ditch, and so I just lay up. I take my medicine. So that's another bogey. So I've gone bogey, bogey, and then I had a double recently, so my score is going up. I need to collect myself and focus. And I smashed this. Yeah, I was happy with that. That drive right there really kind of got my head back right after making some errors the last couple of holes and getting a couple of bogeys. I feel like that kind of just got me back settled and ready to go. And so there we go, another birdie. I think that's 2 birdies so far this round. And this one I just played way too safe, man. I wanted to make sure I didn't go OB on the left in that ditch, and I just didn't even really give myself a chance to get distance. And I put myself in a really awkward angle for a forehand approach, and then I didn't ante that one enough. I wanted to really flex that forehand to go more left off the start and then have it come back, but I just threw it straight. So I wound up hitting this tree and really awkward footing, so I really couldn't do what I wanted to get a good approach, especially that ditch being behind the basket. I wanted to be safe and not, you know, overcook a forehand like I had done a couple times already this round. And so I just lay up. And my partner asked me, is that a layup? I was like, oh, yeah. So take a bogey there. So I kind of just, I keep taking all my birdies away by making these mistakes, unfortunately. But this is a really tough par 3 hole 18, and I just wanted to make sure I got through that initial gap and didn't embarrass myself by hitting some trees right off the tee box. That's all that was. And I set myself up for a forehand approach that I practice a lot. I'm here often, so I'm pretty comfortable with this shot. It is an island green, though, so you still have to make sure you adjust the power just right to make sure you don't go too short or too long. And as you can see, I nailed it. There are some roots there that could make your disc roll back into the water, so it's a little troublesome, but I was able to get it to settle. And honestly, getting a par on this hole feels like a birdie to me, just because it's a really difficult par 3. So getting that par felt good. And once again, I'm just not flexing these forehands properly. I'm just kind of nosing them up and making them drift way too far to the right. But I still got pretty decently up the fairway, so I have still a good birdie putt chance. And my putting was just really good today in this situation. So I get another birdie there. I think that's my 3rd of the round. Gets me back to 2 over. Then this one, I didn't release early, which is my common mistake on this hole, but I did put way too much hyzer on the disc, so I did not push very far, and it just drifted left too much. And there was also some headwind here, so I kind of just did like a soft bid, wanted to make sure I didn't blow past the basket, get my par. And then this is hole A. I'm just trying to get a par here. So I knew right there that the disc was going to hyzer back into the fairway, and there was nothing to worry about, so I didn't even really care where it landed. I just wanted to make sure that I got up there. There's my approach shot, and I was able to get a par and keep myself at 2 over. This is a tough tee shot because you just want to make sure that you stay in bounds because there's water surrounding. It's like kind of like a peninsula hole, I guess you could say. And this looks good. I didn't push as far as I wanted, but I got the line I wanted.
Wow, that's weird.
And this sets me up for a weird situation because before I walked up to this, I was like, I'm not running this putt. It's too dangerous. There's water behind the basket. I need to be safe. And then once I got to my disc, I'm like, nah, I'm running it. And I did, and I made it. So another big birdie. It's my 4th birdie, I think, of the round. It gets me back to 1 over par. And I'm going over there collecting my disc so it doesn't get in the way of someone else putting after me. And I'm shaking my head because I realized like that was a really risky play. And we didn't catch the drive on the next hole, but as you can see, I was well out of range for a birdie putt, so I just kind of laid up and got my par and got out of there. We also, unfortunately, missed this drive on film, but basically I hit that tree instead of skipping left towards the basket, and it rolled this way towards where I'm standing, obviously. So missed a chance to get a birdie on this hole as well just because I hit this tree. If I wouldn't hit the tree, it would have skipped towards the basket. I would have had a good chance, but just got a little bit unlucky. And so I just lay up again, take another par. And so now this is the final hole of my first round. I'm trying to end strong. That's the goal here. Tough with all these overhanging branches that you got to stay under. But I absolutely smashed this one. I was so happy with this drive. It was my best drive of the tournament, probably. It's the furthest I've ever driven on this hole. I threw that about 365, 370 feet. I got past the short pin. And we didn't catch my approach on film. But here I am for a birdie chance. And that's a great way to end the first round. Here's the scorecard. And basically, Charlie and Topher are 2 really good intermediate players in my region. Topher's actually won a tournament this year already, or at the end of last year he won a tournament in intermediate. And then Charlie is usually always placing kind of in the top 3. And even when Topher doesn't win, he usually also places in the top 3. So with having Topher and Charlie on my card, it gave me a pretty good feel for how I was doing as far as the rest of the people in the division. Because there's like about 25 people in intermediate division. And so I actually wound up beating Topher by 2 strokes, and I beat Charlie by 5 strokes. So I won my card, and I was feeling pretty good. And unfortunately for me, there was a couple of people who traveled from out of town who were even better. And so at the end of the first round, the hot score was 6 under par. That was the best score in the intermediate division in the first round. So I was 6 strokes off the leader at this point, and 3 away from second, and like 2 away from third. So I was tied for 4th place at this point. And feeling pretty good with how everything went. As you can see on the front 9, I was able to birdie the first hole. I was able to birdie hole 3 as well. And I parred everything else. So I was actually, I think, 2 under through the front 9, which is not bad. No, I'm sorry. I birdied 6 as well, because that's a par 4. So I was actually 3 under through the front 9, which is pretty good. I usually like to be 4 or 5 under through the front 9 if I'm going to have a good round. So that was pretty on point. But as you can see, B-hole getting that double bogey and going out of bounds was pretty rough. I was able to recover nicely with the birdie on hole 12, as that's a par 4. Then 13, I was able to par. 14 going out of bounds and getting a bogey was rough. Taking a bogey on 15 was also pretty rough. So those, basically that double bogey on B-hole and the 2 bogeys on 14 and 15 were basically what kind of crushed my round. If it hadn't have been for that, then I probably would have had a score that was roughly 3 or 4 under par, and I would have been right in second place and just a couple of strokes behind the leader. So just basically 3 holes out of the 18 I messed up, and that's, that's golf for you, And so that's it for this first round. I will put out another video here soon going over some highlights and lowlights from my second round and tell you how I finished and how everything went. But all in all, pretty happy with this first round. Especially with some nerves and jitters and with it only being my second event, I felt like I came out and played pretty well. I only made, mistakes on, like I said, 2 or 3 holes, really. So other than that, I played pretty clean. So, yeah, hope you folks enjoyed this video. If you did, please follow and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you on the next one.